What's wrong with digital audio? Nothing. It's perfect. Well, there are maybe a few small problems, but we'll live with them to be free from the noise, distortion, and frequency response issues of analog tape. But there's a big issue as well. Latency. Latency is a problem. Granted, with faster computers and interfaces, it isn't as big a problem as it was in the past, but it is most definitely an irritation. For example, try recording with a conventional audio interface, one without DSP. Set your computer to a buffer of 32 samples. Great, you can hardly hear any latency at all. Record a few tracks, add a few plugins. Oh dear, your computer can't cope. It splutters out an error message telling you, "It's just too difficult and I can't go on," or words to that effect. So you increase the buffer to 64 samples. You record a few more tracks, add a few more plugins. Next thing you know, you're up to 128 samples in the buffer. And now you can definitely hear the latency. And has your computer stopped complaining? Probably not. There are some solutions to latency. One is zero latency monitoring in the audio interface. But then your performers can't have EQ, compression, and that all-important reverb that makes them sound nice to themselves and helps them perform well. Or you can take a step up the audio interface ladder and grab one that has internal DSP processing. You can give the performer the enhancements they need in their headphones. But now you have yet one more thing to manage, taking your attention away from the music and the performance. And what you hear is different to what the performer hears. That is simply not the correct way to engineer a session. You need at all times to be able to pick up a pair of headphones that has exactly the same fallback signal that the performer hears. However else are you going to be able to adjust the fallback to their needs? In a recent video, which I'll link below, I talked about Avid's Pro Tools Carbon audio interface, which A has DSP, B makes DSP monitoring easy, and C lets the engineer hear what the performer hears. But it only works with Avid's AAX plugins, and there's no software instrument support. Back to analog then. There's only one thing for it. Go back to analog where there's no latency at all. None. But what I'm thinking isn't analog as we remember it. Here's my idea. What if there was such a thing as an analog recorder with very low noise, very low distortion, and a ruler-flat frequency response? It isn't going to be old-school tape. It's more likely to be something along the lines of FM recording on an optical medium. The precise nature of this medium isn't important, as long as it performs well. And I believe that in the third decade of the 21st century, it would absolutely be possible to make analog audio sound as good as digital. Now, what is important is how this analog medium is used. Imagine your singer in the studio with an analog microphone, an analog preamp, analog EQ, analog compression, and analog reverb. Well, maybe not analog reverb, but with a digital reverb, it doesn't matter if there are a few milliseconds of delay. And all of this is recorded to an analog medium. I'd record the dry signal to one track, the effects and processes each to separate tracks, all in analog. Your singer needs something to sing to, and this can come from your DAW. The idea is that all of the original recording is done with zero latency and all of the flexibility that no latency analog audio always had. And when you've recorded a sufficient number of takes and your singer is ready for a break, bounce the analog tracks to your DAW. At this point, latency doesn't matter. Is this just a flight of fancy? Is any of this possible? Can it be made simple to operate? Is it even desirable? Well, I don't care how it's achieved, but we've put up with latency for long enough. I feel that the day must and will surely come when we drive the final nail into its coffin. I don't see how this can ever be done purely digitally. But with analog assistance, it could be in a different way to what I described. Perhaps we really could have the best of both worlds. I'm David Mellor, Course Director of Audio Masterclass. Thank you for listening.